Welcome back to First Available, the podcast where we talk all things disc golf. This is episode number 12, and will be airing on April 29th, 2024. So, business as usual around here. We're going to be talking first and mostly about the 2024 PDGA Champions Cup hosted in Morton, Illinois. Sorry, I know that's going to drive people crazy, but that's what happens when you read off a screen sometimes. You read it the way it's written, not the way it's pronounced. But anyways, yeah, we'll talk about the MPO and FPO results from the Champions Cup this weekend, which was pretty exciting disc golf. We'll touch base on a few of the things going on with my personal YouTube channel and things of that nature. Anything schedule-wise that's coming up here soon. So without further ado, let's hop right into it and let's talk some Champions Cup. So it was a pretty exciting weekend of disc golf. If you missed it, as always, there'll be some spoilers here, so make sure to click away if you're wanting to watch and not know the results. But one thing to take notice of over the weekend was the weather. It got pretty spotty. There was a huge delay on Saturday. Was that Saturday? I think that was Saturday. Round two was delayed, so that had to be Friday. Yeah, that was Friday. Either way, huge delay. The FPO field got delayed pretty early, and it lasted the majority of the day, and that made it to where the MPO field didn't even tee off. Lead card didn't tee off until like 40 minutes before sunset, so they were only able to get a few holes in, required them to come back out super early the next morning and finish up, but I think we had just enough time as all rounds were able to be completed, so that was the positive side of things. So before we go into any of the MPO details, let's talk FPO first as usual. So if you're following along on video, I'm going to try flip over. I'm trying to run things automated this time to where I don't have to. Usually when I do these podcasts, what happens is, I record them and then I hop into my video editor and I do a whole bunch of editing to it, and then I have to render it, which is just a whole bunch of added steps. So I'm trying today to automate things to where I just record it all in one go, and then I can just straight upload it and not have to do any of the post editing, since on the podcast I generally shouldn't need that outside of putting the intro and outro. I think we got that automated, but let's see if we can flip over to the camera here and turn this on. There we go. Good enough. I was supposed to actually have this fixed to where it didn't have my border on here. We might be able to do that right now real quick. I thought that I made a new scene. We're going to do some live troubleshooting here. That'll be fun. How about that? That's what you guys tune into a disc golf podcast for. We'll try to do this real quick. And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. But I had a cam and border only scene. Boom, look at that. Put my big old face on here. And that way, you don't see that background border. Look at that. I just forgot to add this to my scene. If any of you that get into OBS and deal with that stuff, you know what I'm talking about, but this way I don't have the huge gray borders around hogging up a bunch of the screen. But we're good now. I can fix it up positioning wise a little bit more later. Let's hop into the FPO results. And since we went ahead and did that camera on there, why don't I move it to where my face isn't in the way? All right, so talking about the Champions Cup for the Women's Pro Open, which is an interesting terminology they got here, but makes sense to me. FPO results, Evelina Salonen getting her first major victory since 2019, I believe, which is pretty exciting to see that for her because, she's a sweetheart. You hear her in the interviews. It's nice to hear her. She's a nice, seemingly very nice person. She's got a cannon for an arm, and most of us will remember the previous couple years, her putting woes, where she'd just have the yips on the putting green and sometimes 3, 4, 5 putt, 15 footers. So it's good to see that she's reined that under control. I don't know if, I'm sure that she put in a lot of additional work, so not to give all the credit to Paul Macbeth, but you can remember from last year when Paul kind of pulled her to the side and was giving her some tips. I'm not sure if that part, says anything about it, but she obviously put in the work in the off season. I would have to imagine on our putting game because it's much improved. Maybe if I can pull on the Statmando, we can actually check to see the actual statistics behind that to back up that claim. But yeah, Evelina Salonen wins the major. That's good for her. I was rooting for Silva Saarinen to pull it off. That would have been her first major. I don't know if that would have been her first disc golf pro tour win. It might have been had she won that. But at any rate, if we look here at the leaderboard, of course, it always puts MPO up there. Evelina Salonen in first place, Henna Blomroos in second. We'll put a little asterisk here for Owen Scoggins tied for second. And the reason why the asterisk are the next two competitors, Silva Saarinen and Kristen Tatar, round out your top five. Aside from Owen Scoggins, an all Finland card in the woods. So, is that saying anything? Is there a correlation there, or is it just, more of a coincidence? I don't know, but pretty interesting to see all Finland players aside from Owen Scoggins in the top five. It would have been nice. I mean, I always find myself wanting to root for different people on the final event of the round. I had nothing against Evelina Salonen winning, but I'd already seen her win this year. It would have been interesting to see Henna Blomroos win and get her first major. It would have been interesting to see Owen Scoggins win and get her first non-Masters major, because she's one of the best in the field for some years now, and she still doesn't have a major, to my understanding, outside of like the FP40 and division. And then Silva Saarinen, she's usually a young phenom. You can just tell by the PDGA number in there. She's the first person with a 6-digit PDGA number and an MVP player. So all the reasons in the world there for me to root for her. And then Kristen Tatar, I would have liked to have seen her win as well, just because of her dominance. I do like to see occasionally, if a player is dominant, see how much they can win. That way in 10 years we can talk about, wow, like we talked about Macbeth all those years, that basically seems like he couldn't lose. So it was pretty interesting, and that makes it more fun for me on the last day of a pro event, is if basically the entire lead card and maybe a couple people from the chase card are all people that I'd be like, okay, if they win, that would be pretty cool for me to see personally, just out of my personal taste. But then going on down the list a little bit, we'll go down to like maybe top 10 or so. Rachel Turton, which I believe she is out of the UK somewhere, in sixth place, and she was playing all pretty well all weekend. Just the last round, gave up a few strokes, dropped a few spots, but sixth place, not bad at all. Missy Gannon, super quiet, seventh place, along with Ella Hansen. They were both tied. And then here's a name that is, I would keep a eye on this person, because it seems like every time I do this podcast, this name is popping up in the top 10. And again, quietly, it's Heide Lene, the Clash player from, where is she from? She's somewhere in the EU. But yeah, very interesting. She's actually got a little bit lower of a PDGA number too. So she's been doing it for a little while, but quietly on the scene all the time. And then here's the other name that I'm always talking about this year, and it just seems like they can't get over the hump. Holland Hanley, tied with Valerie Mandoano for 10th place. And then honorable mention, Rebecca Cox. She's been playing pretty good. You're seeing her name. So it's kind of nice that we're getting about halfway through the season this year, and we're starting to see, okay, what names are popping up in this top 10 consistently versus which players kind of, pop in every now and then. And for the most part, it's pretty set. We just went over the majority of the names. Some of the names from years past we're not seeing there. Obviously, Paige Pierce coming off the injury and stuff. Katrina Allen has had her struggles, and it's not going to get any better for her as far as showing up in the top 10 soon, because she's, going to be going through the motherhood phases here soon. So wouldn't expect to see her popping up in there anymore. But going on down the list, no other names really worth mentioning. I mean, Jennifer Allen's down here at 25th. Allie Smith really hasn't made a push at all this year. I mean, there's plenty of names that we know them from years past. Haley King would probably be one I would expect to see up there, but it's just too inconsistent for her. And take that with a grain of salt, because that was probably the most difficult course on the Pro Tour. I would imagine most people would agree on. But again, this is something I do like to point out with the FPO field playing from shorter and therefore supposedly easier tee spots. And I know that's not 100% of the time true, but for the most part, it's going to be just based off pure distance. You only have to go down to ninth place before you got someone that's over par. So your top 8 competitors finish anywhere from 1 under to 8 under, where your ninth and lower players are 4 under par, or 4 over par, best case scenario. So I don't know what that means, but I want to keep saying it that way, and maybe someday in the future when I figure out, a more in-depth thought on what that could point to, that I was saying it for a long time. But the cash prizes as well. You go first place, $9,500, which it's not too hateful, but 55 or 5,050 for both second place competitors. And that actually happened there at the end. Henna Blomroos was she shot a 64 in the final round, and her last hole 18 for her was an eagle. So she gained 2 strokes there to get to 7 under. Had she birdied that, she would have been tied with Silva Saarinen for third. So that eagle was big for her. It jumped her up from a 3,300-ish paycheck to a 5,050-ish paycheck. Math will be off there a little bit, but yeah, other than that, like I said, the one thing that I take note out of the top 10 here is Missy Yanning, because I don't feel like I saw her at all weekend. So it's interesting that she was all the way up in 7th and didn't really see her. Let's check out her scores real quick. 65, really good. 72. 75 on round 3, not good. And then a 63, so not very consistent. Maybe that's why we didn't see her, but a 63 on the final day to hop. She must have climbed leaderboard pretty good there. Missy Gannon right here. Yeah, look at this. That's a bunch of green. 2, 5, 6, 7, 8 birdies. 8 birdies and 2 bogeys. Solid around. All right, let's go back over here. Let's talk some MPO. And full disclaimer, I didn't get to watch every round, especially with the rain delay. I didn't get to catch any of the second round of the MPO. I only caught what was done on the day it was supposed to be on Friday evening. I caught what happened there, but I don't even know if they did air it in the following morning, but I didn't see round 2 basically. But the rest of it I saw the majority of. So let's go over some names here. Obviously, in first place is a name that you kind of hear all the time, but you don't ever see at the top of the leaderboard. And his first major win ever, Andrew Presnell. And again, for him, it was the consistency. The dude, watching the final round, it was interesting. Now, I don't know anything much about Andrew, and I don't want to say anything that sounds like it's a negative, but as opposed to where the FPO field, like, there was a reason why anyone in like that top 5 to 6 players, like, I would be like, oh, if they win, like, for me personally, I could see the interesting aspects of it. So going down this list, Andrew Presnell, I had no reason to want to see him win other than the fact that I do like to see when people get their first like big one. So like when Casey White was in the lead after the first 2 rounds, I was really hoping he would just hold on wire to wire and win the whole thing, because I love Casey. I've watched him on Simon's channel for a few years and watched him improve, and he's a young dude and he's always smiling. The dude's always like got a good attitude, which I like to see. So I would have loved, that would have been my pick after the first round, after seeing the scorecards and him being in first place. I was really hoping he would just hold on to it, but wasn't meant to be. We'll get into that a little bit. Andrew Presnell, again, I had, it's a name that I've heard a lot over the couple years I've been watching. I've seen him on some highlight shots, but it's just, he's never consistently in the top, and I don't know. I just didn't have any personal appeal to see him win, other than the fact that seeing him get his first major was kind of cool. Nicholas Antala, I would have liked to have seen him win, just because, along with Gannon Burr, I think that those are 2 of the faces of the franchise of the entire sport. Going into the next 5 years would be my best guess. So I would have loved to have seen Antala get his first major on the tour. Ricky Wysocki, I would have loved to have seen him win. Because he hasn't had one since 2017 Worlds, so that would have been sweet to see, kind of the old guard snag another one. Ezra Robinson, I would have been kind of indifferent. It would have been, again, it's going to be the same thing with a lot of these guys. If you don't have a major win, I can always appreciate watching somebody get their first major win. That would have been the case with Ezra. I'm a pretty big fan, relatively speaking, of Isaac Robinson. I don't have anything against Ezra. I will say that, and I get it, some of these dudes are a little bit more competitive than me, but he was getting pretty frustrated on that last round, and he still shot a 69. He stayed under 70 every round. 66, 66, 65. Final round was his worst one, but let's say that he tied it for his best. He would have knocked 4 more strokes off and still been in second place. So I just don't think that Andrew Presnell was giving that up to anyone. Matty O again would have been, he doesn't have a major because he just got his first. I don't think was the MVP Open a major last year, because that was his first Pro Tour event. I don't think that was a major. I think that was just a elite series. But yeah, Matty O, Joel Freeman, Chris Dickerson, and Joseph Anderson all tied for 6th. Joey Anderson was on the lead card last day, but he fell apart. I don't want to say he fell apart. I mean, that's a tough course. You can throw. It's one of those really tough wooded courses where you can throw a shot that sometimes you'll throw a really, really great shot and it just barely touches something and the result is a disaster. And it could be the opposite. You could shank a shot and hit a tree and it actually kick out into a good spot. It's just one of those courses where it's hit or miss. So consistency is going to be the key. And that's the problem with Joey Buckets, as they like to call him. His round 3, he went from a 66, a 64, and a 67 to shooting a 73. So again, even if he had tied his worst score from the first 3 rounds, he would have shaved 6 strokes off and been in second place as well. But he had a rough go on round 3, and I'm sorry, round 4, the final round, and that's what caused him to drop down to 6th, which still not bad at all. And then from 6th, there was a lot of ties, so you got to jump from 6th place to a 4-way tie for 10th place. Gannon Burr, Paul Macbeth, Robert Burridge, and Anthony Barella. And I would point out Paul Macbeth because everyone talks about the dude being washed. It wasn't that long ago that he won a world championship. Was that 2022? So there's only been one world championship that he's missed since winning his previous one. And coming off the extended away period that he had during the last offseason to just now getting back into things and really not, it doesn't matter how good you are at something to a certain degree. If you're gone and away from it for a long time, like for me, I was really good at roller skating, and I say I could get back into it. Actually, I'm going to be doing that here in a couple weeks. I'm going to regret that. But I can go put on skates and I can skate really good. But even that, if I go out and if I want to play roller derby, which again, for some reason I'm doing, but if I go do that, I'm going to notice that, in a sport where I used to go out there and be, one of the best players on the track, I skate once every 2 years now. So if I go out there and play, these other players that back in the day to me would have been more so average, they're going to be better. It's going to take me a while to get in the swing of things. But if I were to stay at it consistently, I know I could get back to being at that top. And I think that's going to be the case with Paul Macbeth. People like to say that he's washed, but the dude's placing top 10 on one of the most difficult courses on a major after just coming back to the sport. You're not seeing, to put that in perspective, you're not seeing that from Paige Pierce. She's coming back and having her struggle. She might throw a good round, but she's not throwing good tournaments. And not to single her out, I'm just saying because they kind of had that same, injury took them out. I know, I don't know. I would say Paige's was a more severe injury, so take that for what it's worth. But I just want to show that parallel. There's a difference between being washed and then coming back and needing some time to get back into it. And I would not be shocked at all if Paul Macbeth doesn't snag a major this year, or at least some sort of notable victory. And as long as he can keep his name in the mix of things, I think that he'll have that potential. And I don't think that he needs my approval to say so. I just don't agree with people saying he's washed. If you're still consistently seeing his name pop up on these leaderboards, then he's not going to be washed until you see him out of it for a consistent amount of time. All right. Going down the list a little bit further, tied in that 10th, I think I said Robert Burge, Anthony Barella. Is that Anthony Barella's worst finish this year? It might be. So checking the results here. So yeah, so 10th place at Champions Cup. For a dude that his specialty is the long ball, right? He's got the big drive. To place 10th in the wooded course, I would not bat at all. He had 7th at the Music City Open, and then obviously the first place at the previous 2 events here. Yeah, so nothing to really take away from that. Nothing wrong with 10th. It's not like he's at the bottom of the list. But then Casey White unfortunately fell down to 14th place. And I didn't see what happened to his finger. When I picked up the coverage on, what was that, when they were finishing up round 3, I think? whatever it was, he had split his finger open. It looked like it was his middle finger on his throwing hand. And he was trying to like liquid skin it, and he was trying to tape it up. I'm gonna take a wild guess and say that that may have been the reason why he shot so poorly in the last 2 rounds, because he had the hot round obviously after day one, shooting a 62. Round two, he came in, shot a 65, and retained first place going into round three, where he shot a 73 and a 72 for the final round. So, averaging essentially a 63.5 to averaging a 72.5 for, if you split that tournament up into two rounds, a huge difference, and just fell all the way down to 14th, like I said. But still, that might be his highest finish. I want to say 22nd or something like that was his previous tie. He got a 10th place at Waco last year. That was a DGPT Plus event. Third place. Well, that's an A tier. So, does this show every year? No, it doesn't. Let's do some quick stat checking here. So he had 53rd at Champions Cup last year. So let's just compare it just to that. He went from 53rd place, 53rd place to 14th year over year. So trending in the right direction. Again, he's another one of the young guys. I would like to see him get his due, but pulled out 1,245 points for that. Not bad in that regard. All right, let's move back to our leaderboard here. And going down from that, some of the old, you're gonna see some of the older names in here. Your Barsby, Freddie Mays, I've never heard of before, but I saw some of his throws. It was pretty interesting. I liked seeing that. Emerson Keith was quietly in here. Jacob Simmerod, Kyle Klein. Here's another name I wanted to bring up that I was expecting to make an improvement this year, and I just haven't seen his name in the top 10. I don't think at all. Not only just for finishing the tournament, but like just after, a round one or round two, is the Goose Man. What's going on with Aaron Gossage? So let's see. He finished 20th place at Champions Cup, 23rd at Music City, 20th at Jonesboro. He took second place. This is C tier. 27th place at Texas. I mean, he's consistently around the 20s. 16th at Austin. 42nd at Waco. I don't know what his struggles are because I haven't seen any coverage of him. But he was a name I was kind of hoping to see a little bit more in the top 10-ish. So, I don't know. We'll see. Let's look back here. Take a moment. Here's another name that's been struggling this year is Isaac Robinson. All right, so 22nd this weekend at Champions Cup, then 71st at Music City. Did take 10th at Jonesboro, and then 22nd, 29, 47. Just not all around great. He did have 6th place at the chess.com Invitational. All right, other than that, I don't think there's much other to catch up on MPO wise. Let's just do kind of the same fair comparison to show how tough this course was, how I showed that the FPO was only like the top 7 players or so that shot under par. In the MPO, you get down to 22nd place before you get to evens, which you had Isaac Robinson, James Conrad, and Matt Bell shooting even for the tournament. And then above that, Paul Uleberry and Aaron Gossage tied for 20th all the way up, or range anywhere from -1 under par, or 1 under par to 15 under par. And real quick, just touching on the last day, Andrew Presnell, let's give him his due. We didn't talk much about him just because, again, like I said, I didn't really have much to say about him. He's not a player I've seen a lot of. He's just a name that I've heard a lot over the couple years I've been into the sport. I've never seen him win. There was nothing fascinating or fancy. He just seems like a disc golfer. He when you watched him throw, aside from the fact that he was extremely accurate, I mean, his throw looked very casual. Doesn't there's nothing to him. He seems like he's kind of a boring, and that's not really the fair way to say it, but it was just like it seemed like a bland version of disc golf. But hey, if you're winning, like I would play bland all day. The dude did not give it up. I remember when I was kind of checking out the leaderboards and I was thinking, okay, I want Antala to get up in there, maybe Wysocki get up in there. Like, this is what these guys need to do over Presnell to take it from him. There was no taking it from him. Andrew Presnell, I mean, let's look at his last round. He went 65, 63, 65 in the last 3 days. But dude opens up with 2 pars, only loses a stroke to Wysocki as far as people here at the top. I mean, not very many people birdied hole 1 in the first place. But he goes par to open. And I remember that he had said something about a comment like when he opens up a round and gets off to a bad start, that it just like avalanches, it just snowballs and gets worse and worse. So for someone like him, maybe going par was perfect. I mean, it is a 455-foot par 3 on hole 1. So like me personally, unless that's a wide open hole, I would have no chance of birdieing that. So I'm not going to judge him for taking a par. But yeah, par to open, then birdie, and then a bogey. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, hole 5, this one of his only 3 bogeys on the day, he had a kind of an uphill putt to a green that had a creek running behind it or a pond or something like that. And he just duffed the putt, let it go left and early and high, and it sailed over the basket and went out of bounds into the pond. He made the recovery putt to save his bogey, but then he was out of a putter, and like his caddy had to run back to the car and grab another putting putter for him. So, word to the wise, Andrew Presnell, I'm sure will carry 2 on in his bag going forward. But then, yeah, he goes 3 more pars after that. So, you know, keeping it consistent. And this is where Ricky's making a charge. I mean, look at Ricky. He had 6 birdies and 1 bogey in the first 7 holes. All right, is that right? In the first 8 holes. Yeah, 3 birdies, 1 bogey, 1 par. So, you know, he's 5 strokes up compared to 2 strokes up from the start against Presnell. But then Presnell snags 9, goes a couple more pars, so playing very clean. And then he takes a bogey, birdie, bogey. And then this is where he I mean, it was kind of already really realistically over unless he fell apart. 15 through 18, if he would have fallen apart and someone else would have played phenomenal, that's what it would have taken for him to lose. But he goes birdie, 15 through 17. And then the only reason why he didn't birdie 18 is because he didn't have to. Right? He was able, I know his drive, well, no, I'm thinking about Evelina's drive off 18 was the one that was short and left. I think Presnell's was too. I think they both had sort of that comfortable lead. I know Evelina's lead was only like 2 strokes. Right, but the ball was completely in their court going into 18. No reason to try to birdie it. Finishes with a 1041 rated round. 7 birdies, 3 bogeys, 4 under. Yep. So, exciting stuff. I know I've been going at it for a long time talking about the Champions Cup, but it was a good weekend of disc golf. So we'll transition over here to talking about what's going on with my own stuff. And maybe wrap it up for the day. So when this weekend rolled around, my family was actually out of town. So my kids and my wife took them over to St. Louis for the weekend for about 3 days. I think they left Thursday evening or Thursday afternoon. So I had the house to myself Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Friday I had to work, but Saturday, a day full of disc golf, which you'll be seeing some of here coming up soon once I edit the videos. But yeah, Saturday morning, it was nice. Me and Ross, we were able to go out and get a big group together, which doesn't seem to happen as much as it used to. A big group being that we had his dad and his dad's friend Scott out there. And then we also had Keegan and Landon, Ross's boys, out. So we were able to play some best shot triples over at Xenia Rotary, Soul Arnovitz Park. And that was a lot of fun. Both teams shooting very well. Obviously, it's best shot triples, but it's kind of interesting because we had 3 generations of people there. You know, you have Keegan and Landon, who are Ross's boys, so the young generation. Then you have me and Ross, they're, you know, the middle-aged generation. Then his dad and his friend, you know, they're our parents' generation. So it was kind of cool to set it up that way. We had a lot of fun. Everyone shot very well, and I think the 2 teams both shot 10 and 9 under. So it was a very competitive game going into the last hole, and just a lot of fun, all in all. But then Saturday, since I didn't have anything to do other than catch up and watch the Pro Tour event, I tried to figure out, you know, I want to go somewhere different that I've never played before. Like, I wanted to drive a little bit out of town because, you know, I didn't have any plans, but I didn't want to go like 2 hours away. So I tried looking for a course. Let's pull up UDisc if anybody's following along on video. Trying to find a course that was like in that close to an hour away type of radius, right? But I didn't want to go to Cincinnati, and I didn't want to go to Columbus. Like, I wanted to kind of go out into the nowhere. Pull this on. Go. So as I was searching, I came up with 2 courses that I found that were both rated pretty good. So I like pulled it down to 4 stars only, right? So let's go 4 stars, because I'm not going to drive an hour to play a bad course. So my options, I had whittled it down to, should be this guy right here. Yep, the Rock Disc Golf Course in Newcastle, Indiana, which is like 75 miles away. So had this one been like a 45 to 60 minute drive, I would have definitely went here, because this course looks really fun. Just kind of flipping through some of the signs on the video companion if you're watching along. I mean, the signs here are simple. I do like that they're the kind of signs like we have at Arthur Fisher, where the sign is, affixed to a rock instead of to a post. But just like looking at some of these lines and some of these distances, like par 3, 214, looks like a standard Heiser like putter shot. Sounds fun. Hole 2, par 3, 301 foot, kind of another, split these 2 trees and, kind of a flat to fade shot with like a fairway driver, or maybe your mid-range if you got the power there. 250, just like looks like a fun little course to go play on. And flipping through the pictures of not just the hole designs, but like this right here. If you're not watching on the video, here's a hole. I don't know which one it is, but this is definitely going to be my next destination course to go play. But it looks like you got some kind of little drive over a sidewalk. And then there's like this rock wall behind the basket with like some hedges. It looks like it'd be a lot of fun. Here's another hole showing a tree next to the pin. Looks like that's either pin 8 or 9 if my old eyes can see that, but it's got a whole bunch of different colored birdhouses on it, I believe. Just flipping through some more of these pictures, see if there's anything in here. There was a picture somebody took of the eclipse. But definitely the Rock, established in 2022, Newcastle, Indiana. I've got you on the wish list. The next time I have a day where I don't have anything to do at all, maybe I might drive out there and check it out. But what we ended up deciding to do, because it was a little bit closer, that would have been an hour and 15-minute drive for me to go to Newcastle. We had a course up here, Urbana Hilltop in Urbana, Ohio, which was closer to about a 45-minute, because I'm over here in this northeast Dayton, Ohio area in Riverside. So to get out to Urbana, it was kind of a straight shot up the highway for me. It took about 45 minutes to get there. It was a 4.4 rated course. Now, I had 2 sets of tees. I had longs and shorts. Considering the fact that I had never played there before, and it was the windiest day of my life, I decided to play the shorts. I'm glad that I did. It was a lot of fun. So if you're from the Dayton area and you haven't played Urbana Hilltop yet, actually, I'll have a video coming out. It's probably going to be next week, and I'll get to why here in a moment. But I went there and I filmed just one of my it'll be a casual Friday video, a road trip edition. I didn't play like any specific, set of rules. I wanted to learn the course, see what it was about. And it was fun, but the first 4 or 5 holes kind of played in this open field. If you're watching the screen right now, they played out down at around this tree. This is actually looking on 18's fairway going back down here. If you go straight through, that's this open area out to the left of all this. Is kind of where the beginning holes started, and out in that open area, I don't know what the wind was that day, but it was brutal. And you'll see there was a 200 and I want to say 10-foot wide open shot on like hole 4 or so, but it was a blind shot. You had to kind of throw over this hill that would dip back down, and I was like, oh, this is an entropy all day long, and I threw it out there, and that entropy just sat in the air and then it just dropped straight down. It was wild. But then once I got up to the top of the hill, I couldn't tell if the weather had changed or if the way that the course was designed, that the hills and the trees were blocking the wind. But then I went through like 12 holes or so of having no wind until I got up to like holes 17 and 18, then the wind was back. So I'm guessing it's just that side of the course is exposed to it. I don't know. But anyways, The course was a lot of fun. If you have not been up there, but maybe you play more of the courses between Dayton and Cincinnati, it reminded me exactly of Monroe, an 18-hole version of Monroe, because it had only a couple long shots, and then a lot of the core of the course kind of played through this lightly wooded section of a whole bunch of these 250, or I would even say like 225 to 300-foot shots, nothing crazy, and then nothing as well that you have to shape some kind of ridiculous line, just like a bunch of fun shots. Monroe is one of my favorite courses in the area. If I have time to go down and play that, like that's what I'm going to choose to do most time. Plus you get six extra holes, doesn't hurt. But let's flip through some pictures and talk about this. Like I said, I'll have a video coming out on it. I believe that's looking at 18's pin from the wrong side. So let's flip through here. Right here, this was a very interesting shot and one of my favorite ones I had on the day. This is hole 17. And this is the only hole where I actually played both the long and the short, and I talk about it in the video. But I believe that the short tee pad was 325. You can't tell from this angle, but it's actually pretty, I don't want to say significant, but it's got some uphill to it for sure. So I wanted to play the long pin, 325 foot uphill, par 3, which is tough, right? Because you got to have a pretty solid drive. I would say it plays closer to 355, 360. You'll see on the video the hill. This camera is not doing any justice to that angle. But then the long pin was like 530 foot par 5. And my theory was that the short pin should be moved maybe another 50 feet up the hill, make it close to that 375, 380 uphill, which makes it basically play like a 400, and make it a par 4. And then maybe even just keep the other basket a par 4 right where it's at. And here's why. So I don't remember what driver I used for the short pin. I want to say it was probably a Synapse. It wasn't my Relativity, because that's my max distance driver, and I want to use that for the long pin. But both my shots, my drives, ended up like within 40 feet of each other. My Relativity went, a little bit further, like 40 feet further. But I was in shallow circle 2 off my drive for the short pin, so I would have had to make a long circle 2 putt, or a mid circle 2 putt in order to take the birdie there. So it was just an easy par. As to where the long pin, with it being a par 5, after I drove off the tee with my Relativity, I went with my Tesla at like 75% power, which is a 9-speed driver, and literally parked it underneath the basket, 2.5 feet away from it. So that was a tap out eagle for it being a par 5. And that's why I was thinking that, if they just move the short pin another 40 feet or so, they could make that a reasonable par 4. And then both holes would just be a par 4. But anyways, it's not a gripe. It was just, that's the way I probably would have personally laid it out. But the tee shot was a lot of fun, throwing through these trees. Like I said, that video will be coming out soon. This is the one thing I was kind of nervous about going there, because a lot of these pictures aren't from this time of the year. So I was like, man, is it going to be overgrown? Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, here's a playground next to hole 12. But the course was amazing. I loved it. Like I said, I told Ross I went and played it because I didn't know he had ever been there. I was like, it's Monroe, the North. And then he told me, yeah, he went there a couple years ago for his birthday, before I lived in town. But a very good course. Another one, here's a really fun hole. This was a nice 4-hand hole. And it's crazy because of, looking at this now, I remember there's 4 Christmas trees out here. You can see 3 of them. There's one more to the right. And you can see right here, they are babies. They're like knee height. And when I just played there this weekend, they are pretty full grown now, or, starting their mature age. But a lot of fun shots. I can't wait to get that video out. But then moving on to Sunday, I was actually, when I left Hilltop, if it wasn't so windy and already so late in the day and such a long drive, I was planning on stopping at like Fairborn and recording another video, and then going to Huber Heights and recording a third video, so I could just have some footage and just this week, edit stuff and have kind of things in the hopper ready to upload. But I was texting with Ross, and they were going to swing out to Hazy, and I figured, I'd already played 2 rounds that day. I just drove to Hazy and hung out with them, and then came home and watched the rest of the Pro Tour on Saturday. And then Sunday morning, we had already decided, because it was just going to be me, Ross, and his 2 sons. The older men usually don't play back-to-back rounds with us. So we figured for Sunday we would save for Echo Valley. and we went out there and played there, and it was busy. I got there right at 9 o'clock in the morning, and the parking lot was full. I thought that there was going to be a tournament and it was going to throw a wrench into the thing, but it wasn't. It was just everyone playing casual rounds, so no issue. The boys came out. We did a best shot doubles, just typically what we do, nothing fancy, but we did record it. I set up both cameras on the front nine. Ross had to do some camera work, so sorry, Ross, I made you go through the motions of carrying the camera around, but we got the front nine recorded with 2 different camera angles, so that'll be fun to edit up. And then on the back nine, I knew this was going to happen because me being the idiot that I am, all the footage I recorded on my play at Urbana Hilltop, I had to use my backup camera as my main camera that day because I had never played there before, and I wasn't sure if I was going to need UDisc on my primary phone to navigate. Now, in retrospect, and I even say this on the video, like I didn't need UDisc at all. Like you can see right here on this picture on the screen, the basket points directly to where the next tee is at. And I wish every course would do this because I didn't need any assistance getting around. It was super easy. But because of that, and that phone being a little bit older, I didn't pull all the Urbana footage off the phone Saturday like I should have because I just sat around the house doing nothing, so no reason not to. But I didn't do that, and I knew that it was going to run out of memory space trying to record 18 holes at Echo Valley, which is a long course. And for the first 8 holes, we did a lot of standing around because there were a lot of people playing. So we were able to get 9 holes, 2 camera angles, and then we get to hole 10's tee pad, and we're like, okay, well, let's just let the second camera run as long as it can because it still was recording. And then I needed to, again, I was using my third old phone for recording our scores on UDisc, but it wasn't connected to the internet. So I was like, okay, well, let me go over to my main phone that is my primary camera, and it was recording, turn on the hotspot so I can get the scores updated so we knew where we were at. When I did that, I didn't realize that I think when I turned on the hotspot, it immediately stopped the recording on that phone. And we stepped up there the whole 10's tee pad, throw all of our drives, and I threw my best shot of the day by far. And I'm pretty sure it's not going to be on camera. I haven't checked the footage yet. But anyways, when you watch those videos, if hole 10 is missing on the back nine of Echo Valley, that is the reason why, because my camera was recording the drives. What we were doing with the secondary camera that Ross was carrying around for a lot of the holes, we were actually putting that in front of the tee pad and kind of getting front angles just to try to make things a little bit more cinematic, a little bit more fun than just, watching people throw from behind the whole time. But hole 10 will probably be missing because of that. And then, the rest of the back nine will just be a traditional standard look for the most part where it's recording from behind. But anyways, I'll be excited to get that out. So that should be a good 4 videos there due to the length of time of everything. We'll have my casual rounds up at Urbana. We'll have our doubles rounds from when me and the boys played at Echo Valley. Aside from that, I don't have anything else planned. Let's check one more thing before we wrap it up for today. Where are we at on time? Oh, we're at 43 minutes. See, this is the problem. I'm always like, I don't have anything to talk about. I'll just go over the pro scores and I'll just sit here and blab, blab, blab. You know what? I'm probably not even going to worry about this. Disc golf scene. So, did I play in a tournament in April? I did not. I missed April. Again, I'm not going to go over the work things that prevented me from doing a tournament in April. But going into May, I would like to try to find one. And I don't want to sit here and fumble around. Like I said, I'm already signed up for June. I really just need to get one in May. I would love to see if me and Ross could find just something simple, like it doesn't even have to be like, well, obviously it wouldn't be sanctioned. But if we could just find a little doubles tournament to get in, just a single round charity event, just to do something fun, is what I would like to find. But like I said, I'll be here searching forever, and this will be an 1.5 hour long video if I do that. So I'm going to wrap it up for today. Next weekend or next Monday when we have the podcast, I'll update you if I end up finding a tournament for May that I can get into. I will say real quick before I go, I do have some travels coming up. I'm going to, where am I going to first? I'm going to Pittsburgh here in about 2 weeks. So I'll be gone all weekend, but I'm going for a roller derby thing, hanging out with my friends from Florida at that. But last time I went there in 2022, when I was, only I was actually just under a year of ever playing disc golf. But now that I've been playing for a while, I'll be taking the camera, all the equipment up there, and I plan on doing a road trip edition of some casual rounds up in the Pittsburgh area, checking out some of the different parks. I'll play the same one park that I've played there before, and then I'll try to find like I want to get at least 3 rounds in. So I'm going to try to play 2 new parks I've never played there. And I'll capture as much footage and turn that into videos as I can on the YouTube channel. Aside from that, coming up at the back half of May, we have Ross's birthday will be coming up. And last year we went to Idlewild, and I believe that's the plan this year. So last year I wasn't doing the YouTube stuff. This year, wherever we decide to go for his birthday, we've already got the day off, I believe. So I'll make sure to bring the cameras for that and record that and share that with you guys. And that's it. As always, I greatly appreciate you stopping by. If you are watching on the YouTube platform, if you wouldn't mind giving the video a like, I greatly appreciate it. And I will see you either on the next podcast or my next video, whichever you prefer to watch. Thanks for stopping by.